And so today I will stay high and speak about some of the PLP's accomplishments. Madam President, how fitting that our throne speech begins with our continued focus and vision on education reform, and how we as a government are continuing to execute that plan. In particular, the throne speech mentions that 14 months ago, 289 S1 students entered Berkeley Institute and Cedar Bridge Academy as the first participants in the signature learning programs. The signature learning programs enable students to develop the skills, knowledge, and relationships to follow their passions, build on their talents, and achieve their career and further educational aspirations. Madam President, I had the unique opportunity a few months ago to work with ABIC to assist in teaching educators about the insurance industry in Bermuda, so that they could in turn start teaching the same to their signature school students. The educators were fascinated with what they were learning about: the fact that Bermuda is one of the top 3 insurance centers in the world, is the leading offshore reinsurance center, and is the leading captive insurance domicile in terms of premium volume and capital and surplus. Sessions like these are equipping our educators so that they can equip our students with the necessary knowledge and skills around Bermuda's leading industries, so that they can look at choosing careers at an early age in areas where they know they will have opportunities to have thriving careers here in Bermuda. Madam President, as part of this government's commitment to education reform, the throne speech outlines the next phase in the development of the signature schools, where Sands Secondary Middle School will house the next signature program that is geared towards hospitality, tourism, and education services. I live in the West End, Madam President, and I can tell you there is a buzz of excitement in the area about the development of the Sands Secondary Signature Program. We thank persons like Mrs. Valerie Deal, who are helping to create that excitement amongst those of us in the West. Madam President, the throne speech also mentions the continued establishment of the parish schools, how in 2023, the school year began with the opening of Francis Patton and Purvis primary schools, and that the next 2 schools to come online will be Harrington Sound Primary and Elliott Primary. Having a parish primary school in each parish will create a learning hub in each parish, mobilizing the strengths and assets of communities in support of our schools. This model will provide the much needed support for teaching and learning, improved educational programs and initiatives, and create strong, authentic partnerships to help students transform into places that are relevant to the needs of the 21st century learners in Bermuda. The parish schools provide a hub for community activity centered around learning and development for our students and the community at large. Madam President, the parish schools assist with the government's objectives of equity, impact, and resourcing, ensuring that no child is left behind and that every learner is elevated, irrespective of their background or current circumstance, that each child will be provided with the necessary life skills training so that they can lead impactful personal and professional lives once they have graduated from the school system, and that this government intends to do this through better resourcing and economies of scale. Madam President, yes, there is much to be done with education reform, but the work has started, and the vision that this government has for education reform is coming to fruition as we continue to execute the plan that is set before us. Madam President, I would like to now turn to our attention to the economy. The throne speech highlights the fact that in spite of the global challenges of Inflation, high interest rates, supply chain issues, and continued tensions and wars in the Ukraine and the Middle East, all which translate to some local impacts in our own economy. Employment in Bermuda has still increased. International business has expanded. Consumer spending, driven by increased household expenditure and exports, is up year on year. Madam President, economic data that has come out through the course of 2023 confirms that Bermuda, its economy is growing, leading to an expansion of jobs available for Bermudians. The 2022 labor force survey that was issued during 2023 highlights that Bermudian employment is up, Bermudian unemployment is down, and more of our young Bermudians are now working. Madam President, I would now like to highlight some of the headlines from that report. Firstly, Bermuda's working population has returned to near COVID levels, increasing from 33,496 in November 2020 to 35,438 in November 2022. Secondly, the growing confidence in the island's strengthening economy and our future is evidenced by the addition of 1,942 jobs in Bermuda's labor market. This growing working population included both an increase in the number of Bermudians, a plus 6% increase, and non-Bermudians, plus 4.9%. Madam President, quite simply put, Bermudians are back to work. More specifically, the Bermudian unemployment rate declined from 9.6% in November 2020 to 3.5% in November 2022, and even lower than the 4.4% Bermudian unemployment rate recorded in November 2019. Not only are more people working in Bermuda, but workers are also earning more.
Madam President, point of order, the senator is misleading the Senate.
Senator DeGuto.
The government's own reports show that there are fewer jobs in Bermuda now than there were 3 years ago. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President, this is from the labor report. I would ask Senator DeGuto to go and look at it. It's online. The progressive, not only are more people working in Bermuda, but workers are also earning more, with the median income increasing from $64,033 in November 2020 to $65,725 in November 2022, an increase of 2.7%. The Progressive Labor Party government continues to invest in the local workforce to boost the economy, as it is keen to create an environment where Bermudians can flourish in the workplace. Madam President, it is also exciting to see that more of our young people are gaining vital work experience, and as a result, our youth unemployment rate, i.e. those persons aged 16 to 24 years old, dropped from 32.1% in 2020 to 11.1%. The improved labor force is a direct result of initiatives like the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation's Summer Student Entrepreneurship Program and the Youth Pitch Competition, as well as Department of Workforce Development's Summer Employment Program, the Apprenticeship Scheme, and training opportunities, which have provided opportunities for permanent employment. These programs implemented under this PLP government are examples of the investment in youth-centric incentives to secure Bermuda's future. Madam President, we are also committed to executing the youth employment strategy. The strategy will continue to leverage existing mechanisms to prepare young Bermudians for successful careers and gainful employment. In addition, this government is executing personal employment plans, which will identify barriers to employment, skills, and career assessment needs, and create plans to guide clients towards self-sustainability. Madam President, this government is also in the process of creating a national certification and apprenticeship board. This board will focus on administering national certification, developing much needed skills in trade, and increasing promotion and advocacy for apprenticeship schemes that benefit Bermudians. The government's investment in the local workforce is a positive step towards boosting the economy. By creating an environment where Bermudians can flourish in the workplace, the government is ensuring that Bermuda has a strong foundation for future growth. Focusing on the workforce development will ensure that Bermudians are equipped with the necessary tools required to remain competitive. While there is more work to be done, these impressive employment statistics are evidence of the effectiveness of this PLP government's economic policies and their commitment to listen and respond to the needs of Bermudians and provide increased opportunities for development and advancement. While the news of job growth is positive, this government will continue tirelessly to ensure that Bermudians are adequately prepared for the present and future world of work. The commitment is reflected in the significant increase in government scholarships awarded to Bermudians. Madam President, I also note that the strategic priority 5 of the economic development strategy, which is investing in people, is one of the key initiatives of the plan, whereby to execute the National Workforce Development Strategy. This will lay the foundation for a 21st century workforce development system that will ensure Bermudians are prepared for and able to identify employment opportunities. Finally, Madam President, as Junior Minister of Public Works, I must address some comments that continue to be made by the opposition about the quality of roads and infrastructure as a whole. Madam President, firstly, I want to remind the listening public that this ministry is responsible for sustaining Bermuda's critical resources, including roads, water supplies, parks, public lands for Quangos, the municipalities, and services such as sewage and waste collection. I also note from a recent press conference, the minister stated that this government recognizes that much of the critical infrastructure on which the public relies requires upgrading or repairs following years of decay and dereliction. And yes, carrying out these vital upgrades will require serious determination, substantial financial investment, and commitment on the part of a government. It's a commitment this government has undertaken so that Bermuda can maintain its footing as a modern country. Madam President, the throne speech mentioned the need to continue to prioritize the improvement of Bermuda's infrastructure. The government will continue with its plan to provide significant infrastructure improvements, including an objective over the next few years to scrutinize the island's waste requirements. This initiative for Times Bay Waste to Energy Facility will see the government invest $22 million over the next few years to shore up the depot's most essential systems. The investment forms part of a larger refurbishment of the facility to extend its useful life by another 25 years. Madam President, in keeping with the waste and water needs, the first phase of the water and sewage infrastructure master plan being carried out in St. George's and Southside Southside St. David's will be completed by March. By March, this phase will establish completely new systems and processes for the treatment of sewage and the production and delivery of water. In addition to new piping, it includes new reverse osmosis and sewage treatment plants. Madam President, another primary strategy on the PLP's agenda will be to carry on with our work to merge government quangos where possible in an overarching effect to bring down the operational costs of the public service. One example is the unification of the Bermuda Land Development Company and the West End Development Corporation. The government's efforts show the sensitivity of this government towards the need to drive down costs while maintaining a high degree of effectiveness at the same time. During this legislative session, the public can expect legislation to this extent, ensuring that we can do more with less while providing an excellent quality price ratio. The challenge of delivering public sector services at a reasonable cost is faced by governments worldwide and is not just unique to Bermuda. Madam President, another initiative on the government's legislative agenda is the safeguarding of access to affordable housing, something fundamental to the ministry and also to the people of Bermuda. We are acutely aware of the diminishing stock of affordable housing in this country, along with the implications and reduced opportunities for everyday Bermudians to rent homes that fit their budget. Concentrated action on this subject is vital considering the high cost of living on the island, which ranks among the world's top tier in terms of cost of living. The government doesn't believe it is reasonable nor sustainable to expect families to pay some of the rents currently being sought on the rental market. The people have rightfully turned to the government for assistance, and this PLP government is delivering. In this regard, the Bermuda Housing Corporation will push on with its renovation of 137 older BHC housing units over the next 3.5 years. While 60 of these units are currently occupied, the remaining 77 are not in use and will be brought online as new rental homes once the project is completed. This project will take the total number of rental units under the BHC's remit to 777. This work will bring back online every unit that Bermuda Housing Corporation has in its inventory. But this is not the only thing we are doing to increase the number of rental units available. Additionally, the 77 new units will be subject to the Rent Geared to Income program, where a quarter of the household income forms the rent plus a mandatory 10% savings to provide families with the means to graduate to home ownership or the private sector. Also note that this government understands the concerns of landlords who are declining to rent their units for a variety of reasons, and bring awareness to one of BHC's programs in which the corporation will manage a landlord's rental properties for them. This program helps to increase the supply of affordable rental units to the public while serving as a great tool and resource for homeowners looking for the sustainability of having a long-term tenant without the hassle of rent collection and property supervision. These are responsibilities of the Bermuda Housing Corporation, and that are undertaken on behalf of the landlord. The key here through the BHC is that they will not pay market rates, but reasonable rates as we assume the responsibilities of the rentals. The key message from the Ministry of Public Works legislative agenda is that the ministry is listening and is taking action to meet the critical needs of our population. This government is committed to delivering on our responsibilities. Madam President, in conclusion, as I said earlier, it would have been easy for me to go through paragraph by paragraph, line by line of the negative comments that the OBA's throne speech reply is filled with. Even today, we have heard even further negative comments stating that we have provided junkyard comments on items contained in this government's throne speech. Today, the government was likened to the Titanic, and that we are a sinking ship. Madam President, instead, I focused on the positive accomplishments that this government has achieved and have tied them to our vision and plans for Bermuda as contained in the throne speech. Our throne speech is about serving the people of Bermuda. Our accomplishments thus far show that we are delivering and will continue to deliver, as our goal is to create a better Bermuda for all. Madam President, the OBA may have gone low with their throne speech reply, but we will focus on high and continue to speak to our accomplishments as a government. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Leslie Robinson. And we have an indication that Senator Ariana Hudson will now have the floor to speak. Senator Hudson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I will be brief, but I did feel the need to contribute to today's debate. So today we were actually supposed to come here to commence the general debate on the government's throne speech, but instead I've had to listen to persons who are so out of touch speak as though they speak on behalf of the masses. To presume that one person can represent the diversity of an entire group oversimplifies the richness of voices within our community, and so I actually tend to refrain from the claims of they said and they feel. Madam President, I think it's important that we recognize that as sweet as it sounds, Bermuda is not another world. And so yes, we are not alone in our challenges. We are not immune to the geopolitical tensions surrounding us, the rising cost of living, inflation, or the increased cost of doing business, regardless of the jurisdiction, nor are we absent from the many societal challenges that have been highlighted and in some cases exacerbated over the past few years. As a government, we are committed to entering this next season, addressing all of the little things that matter to each of us. And that actually came from some internal conversations we had about, listen, there are some basic things that haven't been addressed and need to be addressed so that we can ensure that the Bermudian public are able to access all of these programs and initiatives that we've created just for them. When we talk about the customer service experience, when we talk about government efficiencies, when we talk about continuing the work that has already begun in legislative sessions before, we are doing all of these things with Bermudians at heart. Madam President, since being appointed to the Senate back in 2020, we've had one platform and 3 throne speeches. And in our 2020 platform, we promised to rebuild Bermuda with Bermudians at heart. We began by acknowledging that we must continue to focus on the investment and policies needed to spur economic growth, to get Bermudians back to work, to restore hope, to spark entrepreneurship and innovation, and to build a more prosperous Bermuda that provides opportunity to all Bermudians, while also creating wealth for future generations. Madam President, we promised education reform and we are delivering. We're delivering on the phasing out of middle schools, the introduction of parish primaries, and the institution of signature learning programs that our children are actually enjoying. We promised to reform banking laws, an uncomfortable conversation that has begun and will continue, and we're going to make those promises. We're going to continue the work as it relates to the green energy revolution, and we're going to continue to look for ways to partner with members of our community to ensure that we're all on the same page about why this actually does matter for us as such a small island nation. We've always supported small and medium-sized businesses. Those are our people, and we made a pledge to provide even more support to these persons through the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation. And if anybody has looked at any of their programs, if anybody has checked the newspapers, the evidence is there. They're doing the work, and it's working. We've committed to transforming the city of Hamilton into a living city, and while I'd love to see us take it way down to Front Street, we're doing what needs to be done to ensure that persons may be able to own a piece of land in the city as opposed to outside of the city as we had intentionally or initially hoped. We talked about the capital projects that we would move forward, that we would support. We talked about the trenching. We talked about the building. We talked about the impacts of poor deals that have shorthanded our ability to do a lot of the great things that we want to do in our community. We committed to addressing homelessness, and it is still an issue, but we are doing the work. We are having the conversations, and we are forming the partnerships needed to support our homeless population. And we are also further supporting women, children, and families in many different capacities. We committed to creating a nation of earners, and that would take form in many different ways. And the truth, Madam President, is that we've actually pushed through a lot of legislation in these past 3 years. And I would say almost 99% of that legislative change or the introduction of those legislative bits were supported by the One Bermuda Alliance. And so I'm often confused when we get here, and it's not always in this space, so negative, but I don't understand why it seems that we're on such totally different pages when it comes to how we move Bermuda forward. We've increased child care allowance, and I get it. It's concerning that persons are having to pay these prices for childcare, but ultimately we know that it's an investment in our future. We introduced the transitional living program for those who were transitioning out of foster care, and we had initially gotten some pushback, but we moved ahead, and guess what? These persons have a place to call home. We introduced the mortgage guarantee program, and we've moved from phase 1 to phase 2, where nearly 50 persons are now able to earn a piece of the rock. Public Works hasn't gotten it all right in terms of the roads and the trees and the shrubbery. But guess what? We are providing additional affordable housing for Bermudians. We know about the payroll tax relief. We've talked about that endlessly. We've talked about the increased pensions for seniors. We've talked about the changes that we're making to ensure that seniors and other persons are able to get affordable medications. And we're seeing how far we can take that, right? And then we also look at, initiatives championed by Minister Hayward to make sure that persons are getting the money that is owed to them in the forms of tips and gratuities. We're ensuring that persons are protected from harassment within the workplace. We've increased funding for scholarships, and I don't have to beat the head over that. We know what the other government did. We've increased funding for summer employment. We know what that looked like years ago. We've increased financial assistance for those looking to go to the Bermuda College, and we've also made it so that anybody with a 3.0 or above wouldn't even think about where they have to get the money to be able to utilize our services at Bermuda College. We've had a youth employment strategy, and we're seeing the benefits of that strategy. We've generally increased the benefits that persons receive from financial assistance. And I think that the Minister of Education gets a lot of flack, but it is a great feat. And I was just having this conversation for us to have undergone educational reform at such a time as this. We're way overdue. We know that. But guess what? We're making progress, and the children are benefiting from it. Madam President, the truth is that there's a lot more that we want to do, a lot more that we can do, and a lot more that we will do. Minister Hayward said it last week. Good news struggles to remain relevant. And this is why I'm personally committed to exploring ways that we can better inform the public of the social supports that are available to them. There is absolutely no reason for the opposition to continuously allude to doom and gloom. The truth is that the economy is rebounding. The truth is that there are more Bermudians working. I can tell you that I know about 10 or 20 who have gained employment over the past year. The truth is that entrepreneurs are receiving more support. The truth is that international business feels that they are being heard and listened to. The truth is that our infrastructure needs work, and guess what? That takes money. The truth is that we will reduce the debt, and we will balance the budget for the first time in a long time, Madam President. As I begin to wrap up, I want to make it clear that as a younger member of the legislature, I do recognize the importance of holding people to account and of speaking truth to power. I also recognize the stance of the opposition, and I understand our responsibility as the government of the day. But what I cannot take, Madam President, and I actually wish we'd remove a lot of this rhetoric from our conversation, is this consistent line of statements being shared that are rooted in bias, prejudice, and unfounded assumptions. I am tired of hearing about fairness and family when under the rule of another government, it was simply business. I don't have to remind anybody of Morgan's Point or an airport deal that has rerouted not only millions of dollars of profits out of our country, but also the terminal fees, the landing fees, the departure fees that are not going towards helping our people in this country. I am tired of the notion that our people cannot lead, that we cannot manage finances, that we don't understand the economy or the data that speaks for itself. We cannot negotiate deals in the best interest of our people, apparently, that's the notion. And we cannot rely on the expertise that exists within and around this party. It's disgusting. If you can speak about the disparity in performance between the public and private schools, let's talk about how we got to the space that we're in, and perhaps that's a conversation for another day. The fact is that we have ministers, the leader of our party, who believe in an education system, who have to ensure that it is the best product for their children, for our children. And I often say that my daughter's actually in private school, but guess what? I'm now thinking about how she reassimilates potentially into the public school system because they are doing a lot of great things that are not being done in private schools. And while we're on that point, let's look at collaboration. Why can't our private schools do more to support our public schools? Why can't private entities do more to support our young people? Madam President, regardless of when the next election is called, I want each of us to start thinking about the Bermuda that we envision for the next 10, 15, or 20 years. Creating such a vision requires collective effort, collaboration, and a commitment to positive change. It involves individuals, communities, businesses, and governments working together to build a future that reflects shared values and aspirations. I actually think it would be a relatively easy feat if persons chose to refrain from spewing distrust in the leadership of this country. The truth is that I'm one of those optimists who look forward to the future. I look forward to the challenges and being able to witness Bermudians respond to those challenges as we've always done. Madam President, in my day-to-day, I'm thinking about the fact that my daughter may never need to walk into a bank, that she may never go to a post office to pick up a package, that she may never have to deposit and stand in a line at the bank or even walk into the transport control department. And we all know how that goes. The truth, Madam President, is that in the future, we're going to anticipate automation impacting various government services. Services like tax processing, online permit applications. And we haven't gotten that right, but we're working towards it, Madam President. I love this time of year because we all start to think about the things we can do a little bit better, what we want to accomplish, before our time is up. And we recognize that we have the ability to tie up any last bits and to chart a new course. Let us go into this next year thinking about how we can be the change we wish to see in our homes, in our relationships, in our workplaces, in our schools, and wherever we find ourselves in our communities. In the year ahead, I am challenging the OBA to do more, to become more. I want to see those 6 persons who sit in another place and the 3 in this room actually engage with the Minister and Ministry of Education and really get to understand the work that is being done to reform our education system. It bothers me that for the past 2 years, the minister has done everything but beg for each of us to participate in this process. And so I want you all to go out and engage with the students, the teachers, not the Royal Gazette or misinformed allies. Come and let us know what's working, what's not working. Let us know what challenges have been identified and bring them to a minister who wants to see our young people succeed. Madam President, I also want to see how the OBA will support our young people because I've yet to hear any member of the opposition speak about their ideas for early childhood development or youth employment programs or even additional support for mental health. These are problems that are impacting all of us, and it's going to take a united effort to address. I want to see how the OBA is working to support our seniors, but I don't expect much from a group that doesn't seem to understand why we've had to increase pension support, why we assist seniors with home improvements, or why we've introduced additional measures to support seniors and other vulnerable populations as they access government services. I want to see the One Bermuda Alliance respond to our housing crisis, and they might be even encouraged to repurpose or even rent out those old buildings that were paid off years ago, thanks to friends and family or business. Before I finish, Madam President, actually, I have a few things else I wanted to share. Apologies. I also want to know how the OBA will go about curbing antisocial behaviors, Madam President. I want to really know what they actually believe a zero tolerance for gangs look like. If we really understand the current challenge, we have to recognize and acknowledge that these problems were not created overnight. The stage had been set long before 1998, and that too is a conversation for another day, Madam President. I personally know the young men who have made mistakes, who were never taught their value, who were never given the opportunity to even explore their potential. I know the single mothers who are struggling. I know the seniors who are taking care of babies and toddlers. I also know many people who came from good families with, what we consider a good upbringing, and they've been drawn to participate in antisocial activities. The point is that they are all our people, and it's time we go out and reach them where they are. It genuinely hurts me because I know a number of young men and women who are willing and able to do the work, but just need somebody to take a chance on them. Madam President, ultimately, I want to see how they, the One Bermuda Alliance, can change that horrendous picture outlined on the second page of their response to our government's commitment to serving the people in this next legislative session. And Madam President, I have not said these things in jest, because I recognize that even while in opposition, we can serve people. Just ask the PLP, we wrote the playbook. Regardless of where we sit, we understand the importance of reaching our people. In fact, that's what we're here to do. That's what they, the opposition, they're here to do it as well. It's not a task left solely for us as the government of the day. It's a calling on each of us as legislators and leaders in our community. And so, Madam President, we, the Progressive Labor Party, will continue to do what we've always done, and that is execute. If we weren't executing, the opposition would have been even shorter in their remarks today, because the truth is that we are doing things, and there are things for them to criticize, but ultimately, we're doing the work. The people see that. And I thank you, Madam President, for allowing me this time this afternoon.
Thank you, Senator Ariana Hudson. Minister, you, Mr. Darrow, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, and we've been here for a while now, and it always puts a smile to my face, brings a smile to my face when we can come to this place at this time of year for our general debate, which is typically to speak and support the throne speech of the government, or to offer a critique of the opposite party. But it's always an opportunity to really reset the dial as to what your particular political party ideologies are. And I will, in my rebuttal to what we've heard and listened to, repeat what I started with, and that is the Progressive Labor Party's ethos of serving the people. Before I go any further, I'd like to commend my team, the Progressive Labor Party team today, for reminding the public that we are here to serve them. And what I'm reminded of, Madam President, is the term servant leadership. And turning my attention to some of the points that came from across the aisle. They accuse us of political theater. And while I attended an amazing show a couple of weeks ago, Serafina, and that was theater. That was quality entertainment. But I'm shocked to hear the One Bermuda Alliance refer to anything in this throne speech as a theatrical production. We are dealing with serious matters, Madam President.
Madam President, point of order, please. I just want to say that I was the one that made the comment about political theater, and it was not in response to something that was the throne speech. It was actually the delivery that was made by the government minister in his presentation. I just wanted to make that clarification. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for the
Madam
clarification.
President, and
Continue,
once
Minister.
again, the clarification that has come from across the aisle allows me to double down on the point that I'm making. What the opposition Senate leader may view as a show, Madam President, was a passionate plea and a passionate example of what this party is dealing with every single day to serve the needs of everyday Bermudians. It's no theater, Madam President. This is real life issues. The One Bermuda Alliance asked the question, is the government in touch with the people? And I can speak from personal experience, Madam President. When people very close to me say, you look tired, you look exhausted, you're everywhere. And my response is, I'm happy to serve the people. Unfortunately, Madam President, I cannot say the same for individuals who wear the color red to represent their political party. In the last 2 months, I've been to no less than 4 national football games. I've been to netball tournaments to reopen the netball season. Been to motocross events, cricketing events, Premier League football games at Southampton Rangers. Unfortunately, Madam President, I have not seen anyone at those community events from across the aisle. So I think they should be very careful when they accuse the Progressive Labor Party of not being in touch with the people. A question was asked, Madam President, once again by the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader. Where is the sense of urgency? You might have seen me almost fall out of my chair, Madam President, because what it sounds like to me is that the One Bermuda Alliance is full of walking contradictions. I've got the leader of the One Bermuda Alliance of the Senate, in the Senate, accusing the Progressive Labor Party government of not having a sense of urgency, when just last sitting, a member of her party, a senator in this place, accused the government of rushing through legislation and saying that the government should slow down. And this was a matter concerning financial assistance. I listened carefully, Madam President. Service to the people is important, Madam President. And I will not allow contradictions of that magnitude to slide in this place, Madam President, when we are serving the people of Bermuda. The Senate leader of the One Bermuda Alliance says that she engages with people on social media. And while that may be very
Madam President,
well and good, Madam President,
Madam President, point of order. I did not say I engaged with people on social media. I said that I was reading things that I had learned on
That's-
social media. I'm not engaging with them. I've seen the instances that I read
Thank you
about
for
on
your
social
your
media. Thank
point
you,
of
Madam
order.
President.
Minister, continue.
Madam President, I started with a lesson, and maybe her Senate colleague will give her a lesson on social media, because when you are reading social media messages in today's world, that's considered an engagement. Thank you, Madam President. Once again, my point has been made. And I've said this before, that while I know that the OBA Senate leader does her fair share of canvassing, and I do know that the leader in the Senate of the One Bermuda Alliance does attend community events in my neighborhood. I wish, and I've said this before, that she would take her colleagues by the hand and lead them to the people and show them what real community engagement looks like. Because although I don't have a lot of time to engage up and down on social media, I have a lot of friends through those community engagements. And I can tell you, I don't know where Senator DeCudo finds the time, Madam President, but the amount of stuff that he likes to post on social media about me doing my job is quite a lot. So I would suggest, just in my rebuttal, that the Senate leader of the One Bermuda Alliance take Senator DeCudo by the hand and show him what the inside of Harrington Workmen's Club actually looks like. Take him by the hand. Bring Senator Robinson along with him. And take him up to Southampton Rangers, where my grandfather was a founding member. And let them experience a full porch of revelers watching Southampton Rangers versus Paget Lions. And show them what community engagement and service to the people actually looks like, Madam President. Because sitting behind a keyboard where you don't get any response is not full community engagement, Madam President. So I will not and cannot sit here and listen to the rhetoric on the other side about how this government is not in touch with the people. And while I'm at it, after they've finished with the sporting activities, take a walk down to Blue Waters Anglers Club on a Friday and experience their fish fry dinner. Oh, he got one. He got one.
Got one.
Got one. My mate, he got one. Here we go.
Carry on, Minister.
Here we go, Madam President. All of them trying to throw out the street credentials all of a sudden. It looked like I struck a nerve over there. I tell you. Then we had to sit and listen to the newest old senator. I don't know which one he is, old soul. I'm not sure. I heard that on social media too. But we had to listen to the newest senator in this place. I'm sorry. I think it was still the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader. I'm getting confused. It was, a lot of fluff going on. But the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader talked about 4 protests in the last year. Those were the figures that she said. We give a little history lesson on protest. Sometime in between 2012 and 2016, somewhere in there, I was an educator, member of the Bermuda Union of Teachers. And I remember spending 5 entire days marching, standing down in the cabinet office, protesting something called furlough days, something that most of us had never heard about before. Definition of that is taking money out of your pocket, right? And then, as we're approaching the sad anniversary, we want to talk about protests. When we talk about it, Senator Robinson, it was December 2nd, Madam President, when one of the most recent and horrific events to take place in Bermuda, coming out of a peaceful protest, saw someone in government order that pepper spray be deployed to move a group of protesters, many of which, as has been well documented, Madam President, were seniors. And, Madam President, it's sad. I got choked up thinking about that, because it would have been one thing if that would have been the end of the story. But this is where social media and video gets people in trouble. Because one senator that sits in this place today, when it came to protest, thought it was okay to make a mockery of the seniors that got mashed up with pepper spray and refer to it as pepper mist, Madam President. So I'm not going to sit
Point
here,
of order,
and I cannot
Madam
sit here.
President. I would
Senator
love
Robinson, what
for-
is
Here we
your
go,
point?
Madam
I would
President.
love for the
Senators?
the government
Please.
leader, the minister, instead of crafting his narrative, to realize that not only did I apologize for the statements, not only were they almost a decade ago, but I apologized publicly for their statements. So I don't understand why he would bring them up to impugn my character or to elicit that I supported the pepper spraying of the seniors.
History
you.
remains, Madam President, whether apology or not. It was said. So thank you once again for confirming. So we talk about protests, Madam President. I'm getting my point here in my rebuttal. But the One Bermuda Alliance, I said before, seems to be a walking contradiction when it comes to their memories and what the Progressive Labor Party is doing as far as servicing the people. I heard them talk about banking. And why isn't the casino gambling why isn't the casino gambling up and running? Maybe if individuals, I'm not calling any names, spent more time reading and researching and not, whatever they do on social media, they would realize that the holdup of the casino gambling is a banking issue. Those are not my mates. I leave it there. Senator Kudo, and I've seen it before, I've heard of it, has this infatuation with salaries, cars, and trips. I left here during the lunch break, Madam President. And at the request of one of the national sports governing bodies, I went to be a part of a tournament that they were very excited to be having. If you listen to Senator DeCudo tell the story, he thinks I should walk up there. Madam President, the Progressive Labor Party is busy working. And while he has time to run around and take pictures of everywhere he sees a GP car, that is an indication of the GP cars are everywhere, Madam President, because the cabinet colleagues are working. We are serving the people, Madam President. You let Senator DeCudo tell it. Goes on to a point that my colleague said a minute ago. It's those undertones that certain individuals of a certain party should work for free.
Madam President.
Oh, here we go.
That's a
Oh, that one hit a nerve, didn't it,
characterization
Madam
of my
President?
statement.
Senator,
Here we go.
Senator
One of-
DeCuto,
Point of order.
What-
He's mischaracterizing my statements,
Mhm.
Madam President. For example, if I was to see a GP
Madam
car
President.
parked at a political event,
Madam
that
President,
is not the people's business, Madam
Senator
President. Thank you.
DeCuto, you've made your point of order. Minister, please continue.
again, certain people are expected to work for free. Madam President, people that know me would know I can take my own trips. Very nice ones if I wanted to. People that know me also know that I'd rather be at my daughter's dance recital. I'd rather be at my son's football games. But I signed up to work on behalf of the people of this country. That, Madam President, is servant leadership. Something that Senator from another side can learn a lot about.
Point of order, Madam President. Could we ask that the minister keep his comments to the throne speech? He's been on a tangent for the last 15 minutes,
Senator
including
Robinson.
the speaker before
It's
that.
not a point of order.
It's keep to the motion, please.
Minister, continue your response.
In the words of a colleague of mine who sits in another place, he didn't say it exactly like this, but it rings true. And I heard someone else say it in a speech a couple of weeks ago. And this is part of being a servant leader, is individuals will cheer your failures while at the same time whispering your successes. I'll say it again. They will whisper your successes while cheering your failures. And Madam President, while we have heard from everyone in the chamber today, and the Progressive Labor Party has reiterated and given tangible proof as to what servant leadership looks like and what serving the people looks like. After 4 hours of debate, Madam President, it's shocking, however unsurprising, that the opposition, who is supposed to represent an alternative, has zero plan and zero clue, Madam President, how to run a government. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Owen Darrell. And Senators, this has been an opportunity for each of you to respond to the throne speech, and I thank you for your efforts today. I would just like to make a comment, and that is that this morning I acknowledged the presence of the Senator of Education Minister Diallo Rabane in the gallery. And I would like to apologize to him now and to say that he was in fact here as the acting premier. And so we, on behalf of you all and myself, we thank him for his presence this morning. And before departing, he did say that if the senators want to have a presentation on the current educational plan, he is willing to provide it. So that is something to think about, and you can let me know your decisions on that. And therefore, senators, I would say that we have given consideration to the throne speech, and I thank you all for your comments. We'll move on now with the agenda, and that is item 14, motions. There are none. Yes, beg your pardon, of course, you have to move. Minister, I apologize, you moved the motion.
Madam President, I move that the following message be sent to Her Excellency the Governor. May it please you, Your Excellency, the Senate has the honor to thank Your Excellency for the most gracious speech in which Your Excellency was pleased to open and present the session of Parliament.
Thank you. The message will be sent. Thank you, Minister. Darrell. And as I indicated, item number 14, the motions, that's been done. Item 15, congratulatory and or obituary speeches. Would any senator care to speak? Yes.
Madam President, I'd like to
John-
offer
John
condolences
White.
to the family of late Colin Young. So I noticed in today's newspaper, Colin Young was a former CEO of BFNM, and he passed away at the ripe old age of 101 years. I saw him just about a year ago, and with a smile on his face and his sharp mind and body. So he was a lovely gentleman who I got to know very well over the years. So I just want to pass on my condolences to the family of Colin Young. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator John White. I'm sure the senator, someone who's lived as long as over 100 years, we all need to congratulate him. So, sorry, the family, and acknowledge his long life. Would any other senator care to speak? Yes, Senator DeCuto, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to send my condolences to the family of David Benavides. He was a well-known architect on the island and past Commodore of the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club, and I believe the first Portuguese Bermudian Commodore of the club. And I pass my condolences to his wife, Georgia, and their son, Ryan, and the rest of their family. I'd like to turn to sporting. I'd like to congratulate all the young sailors who competed at Sands Boat Club in the Optimist National Championships. I can see a few people in this room who had children up there. You know, I'm sure Minister Darrow would be welcome at Sands Boat Club should he make it up there. whether in the bar or to meet the young sailors who battled it out in extremely windy and challenging conditions. I do declare an interest because my children are in there, but I specifically congratulate Miguel Power, the defending champion and who also won again this year, and Nina Godfredson, who came second and is the top female. And the top sailors from this event have qualified to represent Bermuda at the North American Championships in Puerto Rico next year. And I'd also like to send my congratulations and best wishes to the Bermudian team at the Star Sailors League in Grand Canary, helmed by Raquel Evans, a well-known local sailor, Comet sailor, as well as Fin sailor. They are going through a multi-step competition and they've advanced to the next round. So thank you for that time, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Takuto. Would any other senator care to speak? Senator Tucker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to associate myself with the condolences expressed for Mr. David Benavides. He is a constituent. His family is our constituents in C7. Also, to other families, I would like to express condolences to who are also constituents of C7, and that is the family of Mrs. June Beek, and as well as the family of Mr. Robert Vosper. Okay. Another family I would like to express condolences to is the family of Gordon Ricky Woolridge. I know Ricky very well. In fact, he calls my husband his son, and of course he called me his daughter. And I'd seen him over the summer and had a good opportunity to have a chat with him. And I was quite surprised when I found out that he had passed away. So I would like to again express condolences to his family. I'd like to express congratulations to Collie Buds. I did read in the paper that he has been nominated for a Grammy Award, which is very, very exciting. Yes, thank you, Minister Darrell, who tells me that his correct name, which I did know, is Colin Harper. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's very exciting, exciting news for Bermuda and certainly for him and his family. And like many of us, I will be tuning in on the 4th of February, 2024 to the Grammy Awards. I'd also like to associate congratulations to Connor White, who achieved a bronze medal at the Pan Am Games. And I'm saving the last congratulations, which is to Nikki and Marilyn Bascom. Nikki Bascom is obviously, we all know, is a boxer in Bermuda. And he and his wife, Marilyn, joined in matrimony over the recent weekend. So just wanted, sorry, on Friday gone. So I just wanted to express congratulations to them. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Tucker. Opposition leader. Would any other senator care to speak? Yes, Senator Leslie Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I do also want to associate my condolences on the passing of my cousin, Gordon Ricky Woolridge. He was just a wonderful, lovable person, and anybody who knew him would be captivated by him. Not just his mere presence, but also his super intelligence. And so we would like, again, to just remember that family. Also, would like to express condolences to George Morton and his family. And George Morton is, as most of us may know, is the brother of Stanley Morton. But George Morton's, the passing of his wife, Yvonne Morton. She was a faithful member at my church, Bethel AME Church, and in particular, she served for many decades on our Pastor's Aid Society. She was also an active member of the Eastern Lioness, And so I know those organizations where she served will be at a loss as a result of her passing. On some other notes, just want to, and I'm sure the minister of sport is going to mention these things, but want to congratulate our women's national team, football team, for their accomplishments, particularly over September, October period, where they won just about every one of their games. So we want to just send out congratulations to them. And then also wish to just mention, and again, the sport minister on the cultural side of things will probably also mention about Troika production and Serafina and just the wonderful, wonderful production. All Bermudian cast. I think it was about more than 40 performers. And the fact that they had to put on encore performances just because of the popularity of the show and the excellence that they brought to it. So well done to the entire production team. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. Would any other senator care to speak? No, if not,
I do, Madam
Minister.
President. Madam President, thank you. I'd like to send quite a bit of congratulations, and they will all be surrounding, the portfolios with which I hold, whether it be in the tourism realm, whether it be in the cultural realm, or whether it be in the sporting realm. So I'd like to start by congratulating and celebrating all of the athletes that went to the Pan Am Games. And I did acknowledge them by name before they went. But now the Pan Am Games has concluded. You would have noticed that the flag did fly and it flew high, Madam President.
Mhm.
And I just want to congratulate the sailors who qualified for the Olympic Games next year. There was track athletes, there were cyclists, and there were swimmers who brought home personal best. But one young man in particular, who I had the pleasure of greeting at the airport when he returned, was bronze medalist in the time trial, Mr. Connor White. And I want to congratulate Connor and I've told him this in person, for his bronze medal performance, as well as his entire teammates, as they represented Bermuda well at the Pan Am Games in Santiago, Chile. I also would like to congratulate the Gombe Warriors, the football team. They have been doing quite well recently, and they have an upcoming football game this Friday night. And I expect to see many individuals of the community there cheering on our male football team, followed by the next week of our female women's team as well. Congratulations to Jaden Goddard. He's a young Bermudian bodybuilder who had recently turned professional in his sport. He is a former Berkeley Institute student who I had the pleasure of knowing well while I was at the Berkeley Institute, and I wish him well on his continued progress in the world of bodybuilding. And what they say in bodybuilding, he received his pro card. Congratulations to they're becoming cultural, the cultural rave in Bermuda right now, and that's Mr. Tino Martinez and the Tino Martinez Quintet on their most recent Thursday evening series that takes place at the Deep. And I encourage everyone to support the jazz movement revival in Bermuda by getting up and seeing a show if they can. Congratulations to Ms. Katora Horton, parent chief. You would know that she was the first Black diver in the Olympics, for her incredible stint as an official at the Pan Am Games. I did speak in the Senate, I think, a year ago, how a year ago they recognized women in sport, and she was actually recognized for her diving official duties, and she did a stellar job down in Santiago, Chile. And finally, I would like to congratulate, as was said earlier by Senator Leslie Robinson, the incredible cast and crew of Serafina. It literally brought tears to my eyes to be sitting and watching some of my former students who I had seen act like that when they were at the Berkeley Institute. Also knowing that many of my former students were up in the booth, lighting the stage or dealing with the sound or helping with backstage logistics. So I want to congratulate Mr. Selden Woolridge, I'm going to miss the name, sorry, Shoa Bean, and I think there's one other that I'm missing, I'm sorry. Yeah, for all the work that they put in as a Troika family to put on these productions and wholesome family entertainment. And that is true theater. And I want to congratulate them for putting on that show that most of Bermuda got a chance to see last week. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Darrell. And I would just like to associate myself with the congrats that you've given to all the athletes identified, as well as the musicians and the cast of Serafina. So with that said, now we'll move on to item number 16, which is the adjournment.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I now ask that the Senate do adjourn to Wednesday, November 29th.
That is taken. So November 29th is when we will next meet. However, would any senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? No? Therefore, senators, I thank you for your attendance and input today and indicate the Senate stands adjourned. Thank you.